The girl was born into a quiet town where life moved slowly, and everyone knew each other. From the very beginning, she faced challenges that most children never had to think about. She could not see the world around her. The first time she heard the melody of a piano, she felt something stir inside her, a connection that words could not explain. Even though her hands were small and untrained, she would sit near the piano whenever someone played and try to follow the notes with her fingers. The music felt alive, and it spoke to her in a way nothing else could. Her family loved her deeply, but they did not always understand her passion. They worried for her future and wanted her to focus on things that seemed more practical. Yet, she could not let go of the piano. It was not just an instrument. It was a part of her soul. Every day, she practiced in the dim light of their small house, her ears straining to catch every vibration, every note. When she touched the keys, she felt the world open up. She imagined colors she had never seen and stories she had never heard, all flowing through the music. School was never easy. Other children were curious at first, asking questions about her blindness, but soon some began to whisper and stare in ways that hurt her deeply. They did not understand her abilities or her love for music. She learned to ignore the cruel comments, to focus instead on the joy she felt when she played. Her teachers noticed her determination and, though they could not always give her the guidance she needed, they admired her spirit. Every weekend, she would sit at the piano for hours. Her fingers moved delicately over the keys, sometimes stumbling, sometimes dancing with surprising grace. She did not have a teacher who specialized in blind students, so she learned by listening. She memorized every piece, every rhythm, by heart. It was not easy, but the challenge made her stronger. Slowly, she began to play songs that sounded beautiful even to those who did not know how much effort went into them. Her town was small and news traveled slowly, but whispers about the blind girl who could play the piano began to spread. Some neighbors came to her house to hear her play, and they were astonished by the depth and emotion in her music. It was not just skill. It was as if she poured every feeling she had into the notes. Her music could make listeners feel joy, sadness, or hope with equal intensity. She began to dream of a day when she could play in front of more people, not just her family and a few curious neighbors. Her family, though hesitant, started to see the magic she created. They bought her sheet music in Braille, and she taught herself new songs by listening carefully to recordings. Each day, she grew more confident, more connected to the piano. Music became her language, her way of speaking to a world she could not see. She imagined herself on a big stage, her music filling a room, touching hearts, and bringing people together. It was a dream that felt both frightening and thrilling. She also faced moments of deep loneliness. There were times when the teasing from others and the limitations of her blindness made her question whether she could ever achieve her dreams. She would sit at the piano, tears running down her cheeks, and play pieces that reflected her sadness. Yet, those moments became fuel for her determination. She realized that the piano did not judge her, and it did not care about her limitations. It only required her heart and soul, and in return, it gave her a way to be heard and understood. The girl had a unique way of feeling the music. She could sense vibrations through the floor and her fingertips. She listened with her whole body, absorbing every subtle change in tone, every whisper of emotion. This allowed her to play with a depth that few sighted pianists could match. People who heard her sometimes said it felt like she was speaking directly to their hearts. And that was exactly what she wanted, to touch people not with words, but with music. As she grew older, her skills became undeniable. She would sometimes perform small pieces for visitors who came to her home. Neighbors, local shopkeepers, and even teachers would gather to listen. They were often moved to tears, not just by the technical skill, but by the emotion she infused into every note. The girl was unaware of her growing reputation beyond her town. She focused only on the music, on the feeling of each key beneath her fingers, on the stories she could tell without words. Despite her growing talent, she was aware that performing in public would be a completely different challenge. She worried about judgment, about whether people would see her blindness instead of her music. But she also knew that she could not hide forever. Music was too powerful, too necessary for her to keep to herself. She dreamed of a moment when she could show the world what she could do, when she could silence the doubts and the ridicule with the beauty she carried inside. Her family noticed her courage and dedication. They encouraged her to keep practicing and to prepare for opportunities that might come her way. They told her that talent and heart could overcome obstacles, even when others doubted her. The girl listened, absorbing their words, and used them to strengthen her resolve. She knew that the path ahead would be difficult, but the piano gave her hope, and hope made her brave. One day, news arrived that a famous pianist would be visiting their town for a special performance. The girl's heart raced at the thought. She had always admired great musicians, and this was her chance, perhaps, to witness the skill she aspired to achieve. She imagined herself standing in front of such an audience one day, her music filling the room, her story inspiring others. Little did she know, this event would change everything, testing not only her talent but her courage in ways she had never imagined. Even as she thought about it, she continued to practice every day. Each note she played was more than music. It was a promise to herself that she would not be defined by her blindness, by the doubts of others, or by the harsh world around her. It was a promise that her spirit would shine, and that one day, everyone would hear the music she had kept in her heart. With every chord, every melody, she moved closer to the moment when her dream would meet reality, a moment that would show the world the true power of talent, courage, and resilience. The day finally arrived when the famous pianist came to town. The girl had been waiting for this moment for months, though she did not know exactly why it made her heart race so much. Her family had prepared her as best they could. They encouraged her to listen closely, to feel the music in ways beyond sight, and to remember that every musician, no matter how famous, started somewhere. She practiced her favorite pieces one last time, letting her fingers flow over the keys, imagining the notes filling the large hall she had heard about. The hall was grand and unlike anything she had ever experienced. Tall ceilings, polished wooden floors, and rows of seats stretching far beyond what she could see. The girl held her walking stick tightly, feeling the vibrations of the floor as she walked. Her heart beat fast with a mix of excitement and fear. She could hear the murmurs of the crowd, some curious, some skeptical, and a few dismissive. Whispers of doubt filled the air. Many people thought it was strange that a blind girl would be allowed near the stage, let alone be invited to play. The famous pianist arrived with a presence that filled the room. His reputation preceded him. He was confident, even arrogant, and his eyes scanned the audience as though challenging anyone to doubt his authority. When he noticed the girl waiting near the piano, a smirk crossed his face. He looked at her as if seeing someone who could not possibly match his talent. The audience seemed to share his disbelief. They shifted in their seats, some glancing at the girl with curiosity, others with condescension. The girl felt the tension around her but took a deep breath. She reminded herself that this was the moment she had been waiting for. All the hours of practice, all the moments of solitude with her piano, had led her to this stage. She focused on the keys in front of her, imagining the melody she wanted to create. The room seemed to quiet down, the whispers fading as she touched the first key. She felt the vibration travel through her fingers and into her heart. The pianist stepped forward, his smirk still present. "Are you sure you are ready for this?" he asked, his tone both mocking and curious. Some of the audience laughed quietly. It was not a cruel laugh at first, just a nervous attempt to fill the silence. The girl did not respond with words. She did not need to. She let her hands rest lightly on the keys, her fingers poised and ready. When she began to play, the first few notes were soft and tentative. The audience listened, some with surprise, some still skeptical. The music seemed to flow naturally from her heart, each note carrying emotion and depth beyond what anyone expected. Her hands moved with a grace that made it hard to believe she could not see. Every chord was precise, every melody full of feeling. The hall was quiet now, not a whisper to be heard. Even the pianist stopped his movements and leaned closer, listening. As she continued, the music grew stronger, more confident. Her emotions poured into each note, telling a story that no words could describe. The pianist's smirk faded, replaced by a look of astonishment. He had underestimated her, thought her incapable of producing anything remarkable. But now he realized his mistake. The audience, too, was captivated. Eyes widened, some mouths fell open, and a few people whispered softly to each other, amazed at what they were hearing. The girl closed her eyes and let the music guide her. She remembered every piece she had learned, every song she had practiced alone in her small room. She did not play for the audience or the famous pianist. She played for herself, for the music, for the joy and the sorrow it carried. She imagined the faces of everyone listening, even if she could not see them, and she poured her emotions into the piano. Each note was a message, a story, a connection between her heart and theirs. The famous pianist was speechless. He had seen countless musicians, judged their skills, and believed he had seen it all. But this blind girl was different. She did not just play. She lived the music. He realized that talent was not measured by sight, fame, or experience alone. It was measured by the soul, by the ability to touch others, to make them feel. He felt a mix of admiration, humility, and a bit of shame for having doubted her. As the song reached its climax, the audience was completely absorbed. Some held their breath, not wanting to interrupt the magic. Others had tears in their eyes, moved by the depth and purity of her performance. The girl felt a sense of unity with everyone in the room. Though she could not see them, she could feel their emotions through the vibrations of the music, the atmosphere in the hall, and the subtle sounds of their reactions. When she finally finished, there was a pause, a moment of silence that seemed to stretch forever. Then, the hall erupted into applause. People stood, some cheering, some crying, some simply shaking their heads in disbelief. The girl remained at the piano for a moment, letting the sound of the clapping wash over her. She smiled softly, feeling a mix of relief, joy, and pride. She had done it. She had proven to herself, and now to the world, that her music mattered. The pianist approached her slowly. His expression changed completely. Gone was the arrogance, replaced by respect. He extended a hand, not as a judge, but as a fellow musician acknowledging the extraordinary talent before him. "You have a gift," he said quietly. "A rare gift that I have underestimated." The girl nodded, accepting the words not just as praise, but as recognition of all the hard work, dedication, and love she had put into her music. The audience continued to cheer, but now it was different. It was not just appreciation for a performance. It was acknowledgement of courage, determination, and resilience. They had witnessed something extraordinary. A young blind girl defying expectations and touching hearts with her music. Some people wiped their eyes, others whispered about how unforgettable the experience had been, and a few even vowed to tell the story to others so that it would not be forgotten. After the performance, the girl returned home with her family. The memory of the hall, the applause, and the astonished faces stayed with her. She knew that this was only the beginning. She had faced doubt and ridicule, yet she had remained true to herself and her music. This experience gave her confidence, showing her that no obstacle, no matter how daunting, could prevent her from achieving her dreams. She continued to practice every day, but now with a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that talent was not just about skill, but about courage, determination, and the willingness to share one's heart with the world. She dreamed even bigger, imagining more stages, more audiences, and more moments where her music could inspire, heal, and touch lives. The memory of the famous pianist's initial doubt and eventual admiration became a lesson she carried with her. Never let others define your limits, and always let your true self shine through. As weeks turned into months, the story of the blind girl who played in front of the famous pianist began to spread beyond the town. People who had witnessed the performance shared it with friends and family, and soon others came to hear her play. Invitations arrived for recitals, interviews, and opportunities to perform in larger cities. Yet, despite the growing attention, she remained humble. She remembered the journey that brought her here, the long hours of practice, the moments of doubt, and the love for music that had always guided her. The event at the Grand Hall became a turning point in her life. It marked the moment when the world recognized her talent, and when she recognized her own strength. Every time she played, she carried the memory of that day, the faces in the audience, the vibrations beneath her fingers, and the moment when her music silenced doubt and inspired awe. She learned that courage, determination, and the love for what one does can create moments that resonate far beyond the performer and the stage. It was a lesson that would guide her for the rest of her life. After the Grand Hall performance, life for the girl began to change, but not in the ways she had expected. The admiration she received from the audience and the famous pianist was overwhelming, yet she remained grounded, focusing on the music that had always been her refuge. She spent hours at the piano each day, refining her skills and experimenting with new melodies. Her home became a sanctuary where she could lose herself in music, exploring emotions and stories that only she could hear and express. Though she had gained recognition, the girl faced new challenges. People in town and beyond were curious about her talent. Some were supportive, while others were skeptical, questioning whether her abilities were a one-time miracle or truly extraordinary. The whispers of doubt and disbelief occasionally reached her ears, but she refused to let them shake her confidence. She had learned that talent alone was not enough. She needed perseverance and a strong heart to navigate the world that often misunderstood her. Her family watched her growth with pride. They saw the dedication in her every movement, the joy she felt when her fingers danced across the keys, and the passion that burned in her heart. They encouraged her to keep performing, to embrace opportunities to share her music with larger audiences. Yet, they also reminded her to remain humble, to value each note for the story it told, and to remember that the journey was just as important as the applause she received. The girl began to perform at small local events, recitals, and gatherings. Each performance was a learning experience, helping her understand how to connect with listeners beyond the surface. She discovered that music could evoke deep emotions, bringing joy, sorrow, hope, and comfort in ways words could not. Audience members often approached her after performances, tears in their eyes, expressing how her music touched their hearts. These moments reinforced her belief that music was more than a skill. It was a gift meant to be shared. Despite her growing confidence, she sometimes struggled with self-doubt. There were moments when she questioned whether she could live up to the expectations now placed upon her. She remembered the smirk of the famous pianist on that first day, the disbelief in the eyes of the audience, and she knew that others' judgments could be harsh and limiting. But she also remembered the power she had felt when her music silenced the room and moved people deeply. That memory became her anchor, reminding her that she could achieve greatness when she trusted herself and her abilities. She also began to explore her creativity in new ways. Without sight, she relied on her imagination to create unique compositions. She would close her eyes, let her fingers wander over the keys, and listen to the melodies that emerged. Sometimes they were simple, gentle tunes, and other times they were complex and bold. She experimented with rhythm, tempo, and harmony, learning to express her thoughts and emotions through sound. Each new piece became a reflection of her inner world, a way for her to communicate experiences she could not describe with words. As her reputation grew, she encountered people who wanted to help guide her career. Some offered advice on public appearances, others suggested ways to refine her technique, and a few even offered to teach her advanced pieces. While she appreciated the support, she remained cautious. She knew that not everyone who claimed to help had her best interests at heart. She listened carefully, learning what was useful, and politely declined anything that did not resonate with her personal vision. Her journey was unique, and she understood that she needed to stay true to herself to maintain the authenticity of her music. Her practice sessions became more disciplined, yet still filled with joy. She would start each day with warm-ups, familiar pieces she loved, and then gradually move to more challenging compositions. Some days were frustrating, her fingers stumbling over difficult passages, but she learned patience and persistence. On other days, the music flowed effortlessly, and she felt a deep connection with every note. She began to understand that her blind condition was not a limitation but a different way of experiencing the world. It allowed her to feel music in a way that was pure, intuitive, and emotional. Friends and neighbors began to recognize her growing talent. They would come to listen, bringing others with them, spreading word of the blind girl whose music could move hearts. She was invited to perform at local festivals, charity events, and community gatherings. Each stage, regardless of size, became an opportunity to share her story through music. She realized that her journey was about more than fame or recognition. It was about touching lives and inspiring others to overcome their own challenges. The girl's relationship with the famous pianist evolved as well. He began to see her not as a curiosity but as a true artist. Occasionally, he visited her, offering guidance, encouragement, and insights from his years of experience. These interactions were humbling for him, as he witnessed her dedication, resilience, and natural talent. She learned from him not just the technical aspects of piano, but how to carry herself with confidence and grace on stage. Yet, she remained humble, knowing that every musician, no matter how famous, had room to grow. Through these experiences, the girl began to understand the power of her influence. Young children, especially those with disabilities, were inspired by her story. Teachers, parents, and community members admired her courage and dedication. She realized that her journey could be more than personal success. It could create hope and motivation for others facing obstacles. This awareness deepened her connection to music, giving her performances even more meaning and purpose. Despite her growing public presence, the girl remained deeply connected to her private moments at the piano. She found solace in her practice room, where the world's expectations did not exist, and only music mattered. She explored new emotions, experimenting with melodies that expressed feelings she could not articulate otherwise. These private sessions fueled her creativity, allowing her to surprise audiences with pieces that were intimate, heartfelt, and unique. Her family continued to play a vital role in her life. They supported her unconditionally, celebrating her successes and comforting her during moments of doubt. Their encouragement allowed her to take risks, to experiment with her music, and to embrace opportunities she might otherwise have feared. They reminded her that her value was not measured solely by talent or recognition, but by her heart, her effort, and the joy she brought to herself and others. The girl also faced challenges from within. Sometimes she felt isolated, struggling to connect with peers who did not understand her experiences. Yet, music bridged these gaps, allowing her to communicate in ways that transcended language and sight. She began to see her blindness not as a barrier, but as a unique lens through which she could create art that touched the soul. Her identity as a musician became intertwined with her identity as a person, shaping her character, resilience, and empathy. Over time, she grew stronger, more confident, and more connected to her music. She developed a sense of purpose beyond personal achievement, knowing that every note she played could inspire, heal, and transform. She became a symbol of perseverance and talent, showing that obstacles could be overcome with determination, passion, and self-belief. Her story spread quietly at first, then more widely, touching the hearts of everyone who heard it. Through all of this, the girl never lost sight of the joy that music brought her. Each performance, whether for one person or 1,000, was an opportunity to share a piece of herself. Her love for the piano remained pure and unwavering, guiding her through every challenge and triumph. The music was her voice, her freedom, and her gift to the world. And with every note she played, she moved closer to the dreams she had held in her heart since the first time she touched the piano keys. The day arrived when the girl was invited to perform at a large concert hall in the city, far beyond her small town. It was her first opportunity to play in front of a bigger audience, and the excitement and nerves mingled inside her. She remembered the famous pianist's presence and the audience in the grand hall from before, and now she faced an even greater stage. The hall was enormous, with thousands of seats stretching into shadows she could not see. The vibrations beneath her feet told her how big the space was, and she let herself imagine the energy of the crowd waiting to hear her play. Her family accompanied her, providing comfort and reassurance. They had traveled long hours to support her, knowing the importance of this moment. The girl's hands trembled slightly as she approached the piano on stage. The keys were familiar beneath her fingers, yet the hall felt different, larger, and full of anticipation. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, reminding herself of the countless hours of practice that had brought her to this moment. She felt the weight of expectation, but she also felt the power of the music she carried in her heart. Backstage, the famous pianist was present once again. He had come to witness her growth and talent firsthand. This time, there was no smirk, no doubt. His eyes reflected curiosity, respect, and perhaps a hint of awe. He knew that her skills had grown beyond anything he had expected, and he quietly observed as she prepared herself. The audience waited, unaware of the extraordinary story about to unfold. Some had heard about the blind girl who could play like no one else. Others were skeptical, unsure what to expect. The mix of anticipation created an electric tension in the air. The girl approached the piano with careful steps, feeling the familiar shape of the instrument. She let her fingers brush the keys lightly, testing the familiar notes and adjusting to the acoustics of the hall. The vibrations of the floor seemed to resonate more deeply here, and she focused on how the sound traveled, imagining the way it would reach every corner of the space. Her mind was calm, centered on the music she was about to create, not the audience or their judgment. When she began to play, the first notes were soft, almost a whisper, allowing the audience to lean in and listen closely. She felt the music flow naturally, guiding her fingers and shaping the melody with emotion and precision. The pianist watched carefully, noticing the depth of feeling in every chord. Her hands moved with confidence, dancing across the keys in a way that seemed effortless, though it was the result of years of dedication and practice. Each note told a story, capturing the attention of every person in the hall. As the music grew stronger, the audience was captivated. They could feel the emotion in her playing, the story she was telling through sound. Some listeners had tears in their eyes, while others held their breath, drawn into the world she created with her piano. The girl played not just with skill but with heart, expressing joy, sorrow, hope, and longing. The vibrations of the music seemed to ripple through the hall, touching every listener in a profound way. She had learned to connect with her audience through emotion, not just notes. The famous pianist, who had once doubted her, now watched with admiration. He realized that talent could not be measured solely by sight or fame, but by the ability to convey emotion, to make listeners feel. Her performance was a lesson in humility and respect, showing that even the most experienced musicians could be moved by the power of pure passion. He silently acknowledged her growth, understanding that she had surpassed expectations in ways that could not be predicted. Throughout her performance, the girl remained focused on the music. She did not let nerves or the size of the hall distract her. Each key, each chord, was a step in a journey she had been on for years. She remembered the long hours of practice, the moments of doubt, and the quiet triumphs when she mastered a difficult piece. Every experience had prepared her for this moment. She played with confidence, grace, and emotion, allowing the music to flow naturally from her heart. As the piece reached its climax, the hall was silent, filled only with the sound of the piano and the emotional resonance it carried. The audience was mesmerized, caught in a moment of shared connection with the musician on stage. The girl could feel their engagement, their emotions vibrating through the space, even though she could not see their faces. She understood that music had the power to unite people, to create a shared experience that transcended words, sight, and expectation. When she finished, there was a brief moment of silence, as if the hall collectively held its breath. Then, the applause erupted, powerful and overwhelming. People rose to their feet, cheering, clapping, and some wiping away tears. The girl felt a rush of emotion, a mixture of relief, joy, and pride. She had done more than perform a piece of music. She had shared a part of herself, her journey, and her heart with everyone present. The energy in the hall was almost tangible, a recognition of her courage, talent, and dedication. The famous pianist approached her quietly after the performance. His expression reflected admiration and respect. He extended a hand, acknowledging her incredible talent. "You have grown so much," he said softly. "Your music carries something rare and extraordinary. You have touched everyone here tonight." The girl nodded, accepting his praise with humility. She knew that her journey was not just about recognition, but about connecting with others through her music and staying true to herself. Backstage, the girl's family embraced her, sharing in the joy of the moment. They had witnessed her courage, dedication, and the power of her talent. Their pride was evident, and the girl felt grateful for their unwavering support. She knew that her achievements were not hers alone. They were shared with those who had encouraged, guided, and believed in her throughout her journey. After the concert, the girl reflected on the experience. She realized that each performance, no matter how large or small, was an opportunity to connect, inspire, and grow. She understood that challenges and doubts would always be part of her journey, but so would courage, resilience, and the power of music. She was ready to face future performances with confidence, knowing that her passion and dedication would guide her. The experience also strengthened her relationship with the famous pianist. They continued to exchange ideas, practice tips, and encouragement. She learned from him not only about technique but about the artistry and emotion that could elevate a performance. He, in turn, learned from her determination, perspective, and unique way of experiencing music. Their interactions became a partnership of mutual respect and growth, demonstrating that learning and inspiration could flow in both directions. The girl continued to perform in various venues, each time refining her skills and deepening her connection with the audience. She realized that the true power of music lay not in technical mastery alone, but in its ability to convey emotion, tell stories, and touch hearts. Her blindness had shaped her approach, allowing her to feel and express music in ways that were uniquely her own. Each performance was a testament to her journey, her courage, and her unwavering love for the piano. Through these experiences, she began to inspire others beyond her performances. Young musicians, especially those with disabilities, looked to her as a role model. Teachers and parents shared her story, emphasizing perseverance, dedication, and the importance of following one's passion. The girl understood that her music had the power to create hope, motivate others, and show that obstacles could be overcome with determination and heart. Even as her public presence grew, she remained grounded in the joy and love of music that had guided her from the beginning. Every day at the piano was a new opportunity to explore, create, and express herself. She experimented with new melodies, composed original pieces, and continued to challenge herself with complex compositions. The piano remained her closest companion, a source of comfort, inspiration, and expression. As she prepared for future performances, the girl carried the lessons of this pivotal concert hall experience with her. She knew that talent was important, but passion, courage, and authenticity were what truly made a musician extraordinary. She felt a deep sense of purpose, understanding that her journey was not only about personal achievement, but about touching lives and inspiring others through the universal language of music. With each note she played, she moved closer to her dreams, confident that her music could change hearts, including her own, and leave a lasting mark on the world. The girl had been invited to perform at an international music festival, a place where many of the world's best musicians came to share their art. The news both thrilled and terrified her. She remembered her first small performances and the moment she had played in the city hall, but this was different. The scale was enormous, the audience unfamiliar, and the expectations high. She spent days preparing, practicing late into the night, and focusing on pieces that challenged her both technically and emotionally. Each note she played carried not only her skill but also her heart and soul. Her family traveled with her, providing comfort and encouragement. They had watched her grow from a small child who had barely touched a piano into a confident musician who could command the attention of thousands. They reminded her to breathe, to feel the music, and to trust in herself. Though she felt the weight of anticipation, she carried with her the lessons she had learned: courage, perseverance, and the power of music to connect people across differences. The festival hall was vast, more immense than any stage she had encountered before. The lights were bright, and the audience's chatter echoed through the room. She could sense the energy, the excitement, and the skepticism of people who had never seen her perform. Some were curious about the blind girl who had gained attention for her music, while others wondered if she could truly deliver on the reputation that had preceded her. The mixture of doubt and expectation created a tension that made her heart pound, yet she remained focused on the piano before her. Backstage, the famous pianist had once again come to witness her performance. He had watched her grow over the years, from the first time she had played in the city hall to her small local recitals. He no longer doubted her, but he wanted to see the culmination of her journey, the depth, emotion, and skill that she carried with her. He quietly observed as she positioned herself at the piano, her fingers lightly brushing the keys in preparation. The hall fell silent as the audience waited, unaware of the extraordinary story unfolding behind the curtain. When the girl began to play, the first notes were soft, tender, and deliberate. The music started as a whisper, drawing the audience in, compelling them to listen closely. Her fingers moved gracefully across the keys, producing melodies that were both intricate and emotive. She had mastered not just the technical aspects of the piano, but the art of storytelling through music. Each note conveyed a feeling, a memory, a part of her journey. The audience, initially skeptical, began to lean forward in their seats, captivated by the depth of expression in her performance. As she continued, the music built in intensity and emotion. The hall seemed to resonate with her presence, each chord vibrating with energy and feeling. The famous pianist watched in awe, noting how she commanded the room without needing to see it. Her blind condition had never been a limitation. It had allowed her to experience music in a pure and unique way. Every piece she played seemed to speak directly to the hearts of the listeners, touching them in ways that were profound and unforgettable. The audience was visibly moved. Some had tears in their eyes, others held their breath, completely absorbed by the performance. She played with confidence and authenticity, allowing the music to flow naturally from her heart. Her emotions were raw and genuine, and they translated effortlessly through the piano. The connection between the musician and the audience was tangible, creating a shared experience that transcended language, sight, and expectation. She had learned that music was more than notes and timing. It was emotion, connection, and truth. The famous pianist approached the performance with a sense of respect and humility. He had once doubted her abilities, but now he witnessed the full measure of her talent. He realized that her skill was extraordinary not only because of her technique, but because of her courage, dedication, and the emotional honesty she brought to every performance. He silently acknowledged her growth and the journey that had brought her to this stage, understanding that she had earned every note and every moment of admiration. Throughout the performance, the girl remained centered. She did not play for recognition or approval, but for the music itself. She remembered the hours of practice, the challenges she had overcome, and the dreams she had nurtured since she first touched a piano as a child. Each note was a testament to her journey, her perseverance, and her unwavering belief in herself. The music carried her story, telling it more eloquently than words ever could. As the piece reached its most powerful moment, the hall was completely silent. The audience was captivated, hanging on every note, every chord, every subtle nuance of her performance. The girl felt their engagement, even though she could not see them. She could sense the energy, the emotion, and the shared connection through the vibrations of the piano and the atmosphere of the room. In that moment, she realized the true power of her music, not just to perform, but to move, inspire, and transform those who listened. When the final note resonated through the hall, there was a brief, stunned silence. Then, the audience erupted into thunderous applause. People rose to their feet, cheering, clapping, and some openly crying. The girl felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of relief, joy, and pride. She had not only performed, she had connected, inspired, and shared her heart with thousands of people. The applause was not just for her skill, but for her courage, resilience, and the emotional depth of her music. The famous pianist approached her quietly after the performance. His expression reflected awe, respect, and admiration. "You have achieved something remarkable," he said. "Your music touches people in ways that go beyond technique. You have shared your heart, your journey, and your soul tonight. This is what true artistry looks like." The girl nodded, accepting his words with humility. She understood that her journey was ongoing, but this moment was a milestone, a validation of her dedication and the power of her passion. Backstage, her family embraced her, tears of joy in their eyes. They had witnessed her courage, talent, and the culmination of years of dedication. The journey had not been easy, but it had been worth every challenge, every moment of doubt, and every hour of practice. They celebrated not just her performance, but the person she had become, a young musician who had faced obstacles, embraced her passion, and inspired countless others through her music. The experience at the International Festival solidified the girl's belief in her purpose. She realized that her music had the power to inspire, comfort, and unite people across differences. She began to understand that her journey was not just about personal achievement, but about touching lives and giving hope. Young musicians, especially those facing challenges, looked to her as a symbol of perseverance and determination. She had become a beacon of inspiration, showing that obstacles could be overcome with courage, dedication, and authenticity. Despite her growing fame and recognition, the girl remained humble and grounded. She continued to practice, explore new compositions, and express herself through music. Each performance was an opportunity to connect, share, and grow. She knew that her talent was a gift, and she felt a deep responsibility to use it to inspire and uplift others. The lessons she had learned, the importance of resilience, courage, and authenticity, guided her in every performance and every interaction. The International Festival was a turning point in her life. It marked the moment when the world recognized not only her talent, but her courage, determination, and emotional depth. The girl understood that her journey was far from over, but she now carried with her the confidence and experience to face future challenges. Each performance, each audience, and each note she played became a step forward in her ongoing story. A story of passion, perseverance, and the transformative power of music. Through this experience, the girl realized that the true measure of a musician was not fame or accolades, but the ability to connect with others and share the heart through art. She continued to perform, teach, and inspire, knowing that every note she played could make a difference in someone's life. Her music had become her voice, her courage, and her legacy, a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the enduring power of following one's passion. The girl returned from the International Festival with a new sense of purpose and confidence. The experience had changed her, showing her the power of music and the strength within herself. She now understood that her journey was about more than performances or applause. It was about connecting with people, sharing emotions, and inspiring others to follow their own dreams despite obstacles. She felt a deep sense of responsibility to use her talent wisely, to touch hearts, and to bring hope to those who needed it most. Back in her small town, she was welcomed as a hero. People came to her home, to the local community hall, and to nearby schools to hear her play. Each time she performed, she could sense the anticipation and curiosity in the audience. She smiled softly, letting the music speak before words could. Her fingers moved across the keys with confidence and grace, and every note was a story, a reflection of her journey, and a message of perseverance and hope. The audience, whether young or old, blind or sighted, felt the depth of emotion she put into her music. The famous pianist continued to be a mentor and friend. He visited her occasionally, offering guidance on technique and expression. More importantly, he encouraged her to trust her instincts and to continue exploring new ways to express herself. He admitted that he had underestimated her talent in the past, and watching her grow had been humbling. The girl valued his guidance but remained grounded, knowing that her music came from within and that her connection to her piano was deeply personal. As she continued to perform, her reputation spread even further. Invitations came from cities and countries far away, asking her to play in concert halls, festivals, and special events. Though the opportunities were exciting, she approached each one with care, ensuring that she was ready and that her music remained genuine and heartfelt. She understood that the world could be demanding and critical, but she also knew that her purpose was to share her passion and to touch people's hearts, not to chase fame or approval. The girl also began to teach music to others, especially young children and those with disabilities. She wanted to show them that challenges could be overcome with dedication and courage. Her lessons were not only about piano technique, but also about believing in oneself, embracing perseverance, and finding joy in creativity. She became a role model, demonstrating through her story and her music that talent, determination, and heart could break barriers and inspire others to reach for their dreams. One day, she received an invitation to return to the same grand hall where she had once been ridiculed by the famous pianist. This time, she was the main performer, and the hall was filled with an audience eager to hear her music. She felt a mixture of emotions: nostalgia, pride, and a hint of nervousness. She remembered the smirk, the disbelief, and the doubt she had faced, but she also remembered how she had overcome it and proved herself through courage, skill, and passion. She let these memories guide her as she prepared to play. As she approached the piano, the audience was silent. Every eye was on her, and she could feel the weight of expectation. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let the music flow. The first notes were gentle, delicate, and filled with emotion. She played with precision, but more importantly, she played with heart. The hall seemed to vibrate with her music, each note carrying a story, a feeling, and a connection to everyone present. The audience was captivated, drawn into the world she created with her piano. The famous pianist watched from the side, a proud smile on his face. He had never imagined she would reach this level, and seeing her now, performing with such mastery and emotion, was deeply moving. He understood that her journey was extraordinary, not just because of her talent, but because of her perseverance, humility, and the authenticity of her music. The girl had turned doubt and ridicule into strength, and her music now carried the power to move hearts in ways that were unforgettable. As the performance continued, the audience was mesmerized. Some listeners had tears in their eyes, others held their breath, and many simply sat in awe, completely absorbed by the music. The girl's fingers moved effortlessly across the keys, guided by years of practice, deep emotion, and intuition. Every melody, every chord, was a reflection of her journey. The struggles, the triumphs, the moments of doubt, and the moments of joy. Her music spoke directly to the soul, touching everyone present in a profound way. When she reached the climax of her performance, the hall was silent except for the sound of the piano. Every note resonated, every emotion was felt, and every listener was connected to her story. She could sense their reactions, even without seeing them. She had learned that music had the power to bridge gaps, to create understanding, and to convey emotions that words could never capture. In that moment, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she was fulfilling her purpose and sharing her gift with the world. As the final note lingered and faded, there was a moment of silence. Then, the hall erupted into applause, cheers, and standing ovations. The audience was overwhelmed, moved by the beauty and depth of her performance. Tears, smiles, and expressions of awe filled the hall. The girl felt a wave of emotion herself, a mixture of relief, joy, and gratitude. She had not only performed, she had touched lives, inspired hearts, and shown the world the power of determination and passion. The famous pianist approached her once more, offering heartfelt praise. "You have grown into an extraordinary musician," he said. "Your music is not just notes and rhythm. It is a message, a story, and an emotion that touches everyone who listens. You have turned challenges into triumphs and inspired countless people." The girl nodded, deeply moved. She realized that this moment was not just about recognition or success, but about the journey she had taken, the courage she had shown, and the lives she had touched through her music. After the performance, the girl and her family reflected on her journey. From a small child who had been underestimated and mocked to a musician who could inspire thousands, she had grown in ways that went far beyond skill alone. She had learned the importance of perseverance, courage, and authenticity. She had shown that talent and passion could overcome obstacles, and that music had the power to create connection, hope, and joy. In the days and weeks that followed, the girl continued to perform, teach, and inspire. She remained humble, grounded, and focused on the true purpose of her music. She knew that every performance was an opportunity to touch lives, to share her story, and to encourage others to follow their own dreams. Her music had become more than a skill or talent. It was a voice, a message, and a legacy. She continued to travel, perform, and reach audiences around the world. Yet, no matter where she went, she remained connected to the simple joy of music that had guided her from the very beginning. The piano was her companion, her voice, and her way of expressing emotions that could not be put into words. Every note she played carried her journey, her heart, and her soul, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who listened. Through her experiences, the girl understood that the true power of music lay in its ability to inspire, connect, and transform. She became a symbol of courage and determination, showing that obstacles could be overcome with passion, perseverance, and authenticity. Her story inspired not only musicians but people from all walks of life, reminding them that dreams could be achieved even in the face of adversity. As the years went by, the girl continued to perform, compose, and teach. She never forgot the challenges she had faced, the doubt she had encountered, or the moments when her determination had been tested. She carried these experiences with her, allowing them to shape her music and her approach to life. Her journey had taught her that success was not measured solely by fame or accolades, but by the ability to touch hearts, inspire others, and remain true to oneself. In the end, the girl's story was one of triumph, resilience, and the enduring power of music. She had faced ridicule, doubt, and challenges, yet she had risen above them with courage, passion, and dedication. Through her music, she had connected with people, inspired dreams, and left a lasting impact on the world. Her journey was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the transformative power of following one's heart, no matter the obstacles.